that never ends. The fighter in you brings out the fighter in me. Shake it off and take your corner, time for shout out. The fighter in you brings out the fighter in me. Shake it off and take your corner.
Welcome back, fight friends, to another edition of the Mighty Shoutout Fight Podcast. As you saw, guys, on the post today, a little bit of a different direction. We're not breaking down fights today, and I think maybe, fights are important to me, but on another subject, even more important to me, growing up as a youth, doing martial arts, this really touches home. And I have today, I'm joined by TJ Sheehan from Gloves Not Guns, and I know you know this guy, Mr. Zach Frankman from the WBC Muay Thai. Podcast. When was that? 4 podcasts ago? July?
I believe so.
Yeah. So, TJ, I appreciate you coming in today, man. I'm wondering if you can let us in a little bit on what's Gloves Not Guns, where it came from, the concept, and what the organization's about.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, and Zach, always a pleasure. So Gloves Not Guns kind of started out as a bit of a passion project. So I'm very passionate about helping kids stay out of gangs, violence, and addiction. And, you know, myself, I fell into that lifestyle. Something that really saved me was martial arts and boxing. You know, I was in martial arts at a very young age, karate, and I hated it until I started to understand the discipline and what it taught me and, you know, the strengths that I had as a young kid. Moving forward, boxing was always an outlet for me. Muay Thai was always an outlet for me. MMA was an outlet for me. You know, I was bullied as a kid, and that was something that was, you know, really hard to understand who I was. I didn't have that identity. I always wanted to fit in. But when I got in the ring or I got, you know, the gloves on, it really helped me understand who I was and give me that, you know, discipline and confidence that I didn't necessarily have. Now, my life did fall apart, and I did get into a lot of violent altercations. I was known to be a super violent guy. That's what helped me excel in the gang world. You know, and now we're just trying to help these kids find that healthy outlet and understand that you don't have to go down that route. This isn't about fighting. This is more about discipline, community, and having that healthy outlet where you're able to push yourself.
Preach, man. No, that's awesome. Before we sort of break down maybe a little bit of your history, we don't gotta get into it, but how do you go from to butchering this good guy to bad guy to good guy? How does that transition happen with yourself?
Well, I mean, I was always a good guy. I always had those values and those morals. I knew the difference between right and wrong. And again, when I was involved in that life, I had this kind of alter ego, this personality shift. I was always trying to be someone that I wasn't, right? So that was always inside of me, and that was the hard part, is when I go and do all this violent stuff, I knew that that wasn't who I was. And a big part of it was masking it with drugs and alcohol. So I'm in recovery. I'm an addict. That was something that would help me get through and kind of forget about the shit that I was doing. And until I got sober and really figured out who I was and how I could offer that gift to the world, you know, I had to make that decision. Am I going to go down this road where I'm definitely going to end up dead or in jail, or am I going to make a choice and align with my current values of who I am and be a better person?
And just out of curiosity, was that like a line in the sand, like you know, forget this, from now on we're taking a different path, or did it kind of organically come, or did you draw a line in the sand?
It was black and white, had to be. It was a build up for a long period of time. And eventually it was a suicide attempt. I put a gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger, and that gun jammed, and that was God, higher power, whatever you call it. That was kind of the line in the sand was drawn for me. And then I had to make a choice. So am I going to continue? Am I going to keep going? Or am I going to make a choice to do better because I'm given this second chance at life?
And that is officially the heaviest thing I've heard on this podcast. Holy cow. But obviously, from what I know, and again, to be honest, I know nothing. I'm so vanilla ice cream, man. I just come here. I just do martial arts. I guess that sounds like a fairly common story from what I hear. As far as, well, what age were you? I guess when this, maybe when you were in your most trouble, or when you felt like, well, you had a little helping hand in switching directions.
Yeah. So that basically black and white decision, I was about 27 years old.
Okay.
Right? My addiction probably started when I was, you know, realistically, that childhood trauma. That's what addiction is that unhealed childhood trauma. So the pain in my life started from when I was 3 or 4 years old, and I just learned how to mask it or ignore it up until that point when I was about 27.
Whoa. And now you just mentioned as well, that you knew that the right from wrong, that's not who you were. I'm very curious. Is that something that, like, I'm assuming not, but something like people, you go, I beat that guy up, I do whatever I do, and then I go home and I have a sandwich and I go to bed. Was that something you could do, or did it stay? Like, did it eat you alive? Is what I'm asking, I guess.
Some days I could do it, and that's what, I had that separation where I was able to, sometimes I would just go out and do a collection and things would happen and it would be horrific, and I'd come home and turn the switch off and go to bed and get up in the morning, and it was no big deal. But the layers that would build inside of me of knowing that was wrong, knowing that karmatic debt is real and it's going to come back to me, eventually built up so much that was one of the reasons why I wanted to take my own life.
Sure.
Was because I just couldn't handle the pain that I've caused, yes, myself, but other people that love me, people that have no idea who I am, or, it's that karmatic debt. So eventually it just came to that point where I couldn't cope anymore.
And so this was before any sort of recovery, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you had quite whatever you want to call it, experience pulling a trigger and having it not go off. When did recovery start happening? I guess, was it right then? When was it time to start the healing?
So, seeds have been planted throughout my life. My family, a lot of my family are addicts, right?
Okay.
In recovery. My mom was an alcoholic when I was growing up. I didn't necessarily know, but I grew up in the rooms of AA, right?
Okay.
And, after that happened, the first thing I did was call my mom, and she's obviously seen my negative progression, and she just told me, she said, get to a fucking meeting. That was her exact words. And that's what I did. And I didn't necessarily get sober and stay sober that moment, but I made that decision, and I started working and working and working. And, in August, I just celebrated 4 years of, absolute clean time.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, big man.
So,
Yeah, man, and I apologize for my stumbling. This is some fucking conversation. I talk about punches and kicks normally. Although, don't get me wrong, this is unbelievably important, and I'm already very drawn in. So once things started changing in a positive direction for you, how long did it take for you to look around and be like, hey, I think it's time for me to maybe start helping others and reaching out more? When did that happen?
right away. That's part of the recovery process is, giving back what was so freely given to us, right?
Sure.
So part of my recovery and part of my maintaining sobriety is to help others through the program, help others find themselves, stay sober. And it's just been a constant progression of that. So, it started as, I built my own treatment center and had a recovery house for men at 8 months sober. Right. And I got so much criticism for that. You don't have enough clean time. You're never going to be able to do it. But that was my motivation. I never went to treatment. I literally built a treatment center around me. And every day I was working on my own recovery as much as I was helping these men find themselves and be a true gentleman is what I call it.
Nice. Well, and at least from my side of the fence here, leading by example. And I think not just that, but I know I'm butchering this, but if I was a clean-cut individual who looks like I haven't even sworn in my life, would I listen to you? No. But knowing that someone's not just gone through it, but also going through it at the exact same time, I think that's pretty admirable, in my honest opinion.
And that's what we say. We say lived experience saves lives. A lot of people can go to school and learn about addiction, but to actually be able to live it, overcome it, and work at it every day. Like, I'm not recovered. I'm not a recovered addict. I'll be an addict till the day I die.
Sure, for that.
And it's out in the parking lot doing push-ups. And I have to make sure that every day I'm doing something to maintain my recovery and to strengthen it. Because if I slip up, I know exactly where it's going to lead. It's going to lead back to addiction, which leads me to death or jail.
And if you don't mind me asking, how did you navigate that minefield of leaving the life that you were previously in with the other individuals that would have been connected with you through there who would have potentially wanted you to stay doing what you were doing as it provides them a revenue stream?
Yeah, so leaving, and we have a gang exit program that we're working on to help individuals exit that gang life safely. Something that's different from us is we don't work with law enforcement, and individuals can't owe any criminal organization money. Which is kind of...
I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time? You cannot work with the police? I'm sorry?
So we don't work directly with the police for our gang exit program.
Okay.
So if you have worked with the police and you're known as a rat or an informant, our program is not for you.
And why is that?
Because it's really hard to get out safely. There's a fine line in the sand that's drawn, is if you're going to get out of a gang, you're still respected, but you're making that positive choice to do better. you're going to be respected to be able to exit that life. If you're out ratting on people and putting other people in jail, you're going to get a hit put on you, or there's going to be some serious repercussions.
Right, I got you.
And also with that owing money. So if you owe money to a criminal organization, we can help you mitigate that debt. We're not going to pay it for you, but we're going to come up with a plan so that you can pay it back and exit safely. Our whole thing is we want people to exit the life safely so they don't have to look over their shoulders. Nothing against law enforcement, but when you're working with law enforcement, you just put a target on your back that's not going to help you get out of that safely, so that you're not, always looking over your shoulder.
Sure.
For me, that was kind of the case. That's why this program is dedicated that way, because of the experience that I went through. So of course I had enemies, but I was also pretty well respected. And when I made that decision, I didn't owe money. I didn't, have any work with law enforcement, and I basically was able to leave that life safely. I still have people that are in that life that do reach out to me, but it's more for the fact of, hey man, I'm trying to get sober. Hey man, I'm having these mental health issues. Can you help me? So now I don't have to go and look over my shoulder. There was a time in my life where, my house was shot up in a drive-by with 7 shots that was flying over my head when I was asleep. Been stabbed multiple times, been shot at multiple times. And now that's something that I don't have to worry about. Right?
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
Is there a part of I don't know, I'm just guessing. Is there a part of maybe not working with the police, helping people who maybe are looking for your help, is maybe a little extra layer of comfort? Like it's not I don't know how to explain it. It's not a police thing. You know what I mean? Like we're genuinely here to help. Like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
100%. And I mean, again, I'm not here to bash law enforcement or bash the police, but an incident that just happened in Wetaskiwin a couple days ago. There's a 15-year-old who called the police because people were chasing him. The police intervened with him. He handed over their weapons. He had a machete and a knife. Something else happened. He was in a field, and the 2 police officers shot him. He killed him.
Oh, right.
So, and this is happening quite a bit. So when we're working with a lot of these kids who are gang entrenched, a lot of them are newcomers to Canada. And because they're coming to Canada, they're looking for that financial gain. They're looking to fit in because they're immigrants. When working with the police, it builds that distrust. A lot of the families don't trust the police. A lot of the police come in just to get information from these kids, and there's no protection after that. So they're kind of using it for their own personal gain, where our program is different because we actually want to help these kids exit safely and then find out what those transferable skills. You were a drug dealer in your past life. Okay, amazing. You're good at math. You're good at marketing. You're good at communication. How can we transfer that into maybe having you a business, maybe being a car detailer, or whatever those transferable skills are? Then we shine the light on that and help these kids. And that's one of the things with the Gloves Not Guns boxing program, is we get to meet these kids who come in from boxing. They want to come in and learn how to fight and learn how to be boxers, but we engage with them in the sense of like, okay, what's next? What are the skills you bring? If you could, be anything in the world, what would that be? And then how to support them to get there.
Nice. So what the program, I keep hearing that word. What is the program? Not maybe, is there something besides the Gloves Not Guns that you're doing? And by the way, a second question, are you like Canada-wide, Calgary, Alberta?
So this program has only been out for about 4 months.
Okay,
and
brand new,
really,
great.
Really taken off. It's been such a natural process. Like this has just been a natural process that it's happened. And, even Zach coming here from the UK and getting linked up with us and, right in our infancy stage. This program is different because we have 3 elements to it. So we bring the kids in, we have a lived experience speaker. So an ex-gang member, someone who's turned their life around from addiction, someone who's overcome adversity and shines resilience. Then we have that, we say no contact boxing session, a lot of times for the schools, and we're not promoting fighting. We're promoting, boxing and Muay Thai. And so we wear them out with that. And then we have a life skills portion where after the boxing, we sit in a circle or sit in a classroom and talk about what are the challenges you're going through? What are some of the strengths that you have? What are some of the obstacles in life that might be holding you back? And how as us as mentors can help with our experience to help these kids overcome these challenges.
Nice. And after a good hard workout, maybe some gums might fly a little more, you feel a little more connected. You've had the big energy output. You're maybe willing to talk a little bit.
Absolutely. And it's all about that connection, right? So the kids come in as strangers and we kind of leave as family, right? So if something happens, they know that they can always call us as coaches because we're going to be there and we have their back. A lot of times these kids don't have people that show up consistently for them.
Sure.
And that's a big part of falling into gangs or violence or drugs, is not having those positive role models. If I had someone like me when I was growing up, I probably wouldn't fall into that same circumstance that I did. So that's what we're really trying to provide and make sure that we're sustainable in that.
And so how did you start this whole program? Where the besides maybe one day saying you want to do this, but how does something like this even start?
I mean, it's always kind of been a dream of mine, and I went to no judgment here, but I went to Rumble, to one of the boxing
Ye have been judged.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm joking. I love Rumble.
The single mom Rumble boxing
Sure.
clubs. And I met Logan there, who is one of the trainers. And I just went there because I got the one-on-one session. I've been boxing for a long time, but I got to go there and just hit pads.
Yep.
And we started chatting, and I said, if you could do anything, what would it be? And he said, well, I'd always like to work with kids and youth. And so that got my brain thinking, because this has always been a dream of mine. I just didn't know how it was going to unfold. And that was a motivation. And then it's just been, gaining people as we go. We've met Zach. We have, a really good guy named Kale, who's a well-renowned artist, very similar background to mine. He's been helping us out. We have Jameson, who's, taken on this program coordinator role and working behind the scenes to really get, hopefully some funding and some networks and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just me, it's just, this has been a vision, and it's just expanding as we grow with amazing people who want to make a difference.
Right on, man. And how do you, I'm a troubled youth. I'm looking to be part of this. What is it that you need to do? How do I get involved?
I mean, the best way is just at Gloves Not Guns Boxing on Instagram. Get a hold of me, and we'll get you signed up. And whenever there's a program closest to them in the city, we'll make sure that everyone's included. One of our missions is that no kid gets left behind, and there's no financial commitment for anyone. So it's totally free for any kid who wants to join. And right now we're just in Calgary, but we're looking at expanding in Edmonton, and then hopefully Canada-wide.
Nice, right on. And are you finding, maybe unfortunately, that this program is growing? Like, you know what I mean? Is there more and more need for it? Are you seeing more and more need?
Well, there absolutely is, and so we're actually one of the first martial arts boxing programs that was accepted into CYOC, so Calgary Young Offender Center. So we actually have gone in there. Zach was a part of that and worked with some of the young inmates in there and done the boxing program in there. We're also doing it with when they get out of custody. And now, the schools are kind of taking us on, so we're running some pilot projects at the school. So it is really growing, but we really want to protect the integrity, because the most important thing is the kids, and our whole thing is impact over income. So we're here not to make money. We've put several $1,000s into this. We haven't gotten any back. That's not what we're here for. We're here for those kids so that they don't have to fall down the same path that, I or some of the team members have.
Right. Gotcha. And Zach, so I've heard your name brought up a few times here. Just curious. So I know we briefly touched on it, but can you explain how you got involved in this?
So the way in which I got involved with TJ here with the Gloves Not Guns is, since I've started coming over to Canada a lot more with the plan to move here in the beginning of January next year. This is youth violence, and helping to tackle youth violence and gang violence has always been a passion project of mine, and it starts off really with my childhood, but to go into how it's come up more recently is a program that I'm part of back in the UK, which is run through the Royal Navy. As those who've heard the last podcast that I was on know that I'm a lieutenant in the Royal Navy, and I help with coaching the Royal Navy Muay Thai squad. We were reached out to, the Royal Navy Muay Thai were reached out to by a guy who is called Warrant Officer Dennis Harrison. Now, he is truly the mastermind behind what has come to be known as the Combat Sports Initiative. And the way that has functioned is that typically with the Navy, we go away on deployment for long periods of time, and when we'd come back, as I think globally is now known to be an issue, knife crime is quite a big thing in the UK. Mm-hmm. Gang crime then being involved with, knife crime and gang crime going in hand in the UK as they do. And when we'd come back from deployment, people would go to their hometowns and see just how much more rampant and more rife it's gotten. And Warrant Officer Harrison then, from that point onwards, reached out to the Navy martial arts teams and with the recruitment office for the Royal Navy. And what it was that was decided and masterminded entirely by himself to then go and run is that we'd reach out to gyms up and down the UK, to see whether or not they'd be palatable for us coming in. And the way it would run is that, typically on a Saturday or Sunday, the gym would open itself up entirely for free to the community and to their members. We would come along with members of the Royal Navy and the Royal Marines Commandos. We would then provide a session for these kids in connection with a charity called Weapons Down, Gloves Up. And what that would focus on is really the values that the military brings. With the Royal Navy, that is something that we call C2 drill, that being courage, commitment, discipline, respect, integrity, and loyalty. And those are the main things that also focus in with martial arts as well. Those two very much go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So we were using our military experience and our passion for martial arts to go to these kids and provide them with these sorts of values through martial arts training. Because what we found works with martial arts is that gyms become community hubs in and of themselves. Coaches become pseudo-parental figures. And when you can bring these children into gyms, provide them with a space where they can get that aggression, that pent-up rage and that disenfranchisement out in a manner that is constructive, in a manner that they'll be praised for, in a manner that is progressive, so they can go from one day turning up to the gym, uncoordinated, thinking they know how to fight, but, we all know that they just will typically go out on the street and swing handbags.
Sure.
And then from that point onwards, potentially work up to, being professional, earning money through it. At the end of the day, if you're going to go out, and fight with someone in the street and potentially, lose your life, why don't you just go into a boxing ring and a boxing gym and do it where you're going to make money for it?
Right.
And that program has been, going leaps and bounds ever since we first started. We've now ended up in gyms such as Bad Company, where Liam Harrison trains out of, Joe Craven, Amber Kitchen, who is now sponsored through the Combat Sports Initiative as a one championship fighter. We've been to Two Brothers Muay Thai with Joe Ryan, who's the Rajadamnam world
Shout out to
champion.
Two Brothers.
And they've taken us in with open arms.
Nice.
And once I saw just how well this program has been running in the UK and the difference it's been making for these individuals and these children, and the fact that it's then shown, specifically with the UK at least, that the military and the sports that the military can provide is an outlet and is an alternative route that you can go down for a job, rather than going into that gang violence and that youth violence and going down that stream with your life. I said to myself, when I moved over to Canada and got involved with WBC Canada, that this is something that I'd bring here. It's a major project that I think everyone should be able to look after themselves and handle themselves at a young age, and everyone should know that there are these resources available to them, that they can go and do this rather than go into that life. So one day I was working downtown on my laptop, and it got down on my list of things to do to research into this. And it ended up being quite the coincidence in the series of events. I searched up youth charities in Calgary, came across Calgary Youth Justice Society, and saw that had, with its influence in dealing with children that are potentially going into gang violence or violent crime in general, and helping them, once they're in the legal system and once they're getting out of the legal system. I thought that looks exactly like the kind of thing I want to get involved with, and this is exactly the kind of charity that fits what it is that I'm looking for. I searched up where their office was. It was 10 minutes away from me. I walked down there, knocked on the door, walked straight in, and I started speaking with Jill, the program's director. Through Jill, I then spoke to her and detailed the Combat Sports Initiative that I'm part of in the UK and how that works, and how I'd love to bring something similar and work with, charities in Canada to bring a similar sort of program here. She, funnily enough, went, "I've got the exact thing for you," hands me a brochure for Gloves Not Guns. I thought, this is exactly what it is that I've been looking for. This is bang on representative of every facet of what I'm trying to find here. She said that TJ was going to be running a session that same day over in the Newcomer Centre in Northeast. Said it started at 2:30. I went, it's 1 p.m. now, rather than setting up an email and creating a link through that way. I went, I'll just go up there and speak to him now. And that's exactly what
I'm
exactly
definitely
what I
learning
did.
you're that guy, a man of action.
Exactly what I did straight afterwards. I hopped on the C train, went straight up to the Newcomer Centre, and then started having a chat with TJ. Observed how the session ran, got involved with running one of the sessions, and it's essentially been running from there.
Nothing happens by accident.
Sure. Yeah, no kidding. Hey,
Yeah.
So my next question for you, you kind of led into it, but from your point of view, so I know I'm butchering this, but I walk into a place and go, hey, so I have some possible violent youth gang affiliated people. Let's teach them how to fight. that seems like a bad idea. But like I mentioned on Instagram, I have heard hundreds of times, countless times, whether I've watched boxing, Muay Thai, anything on YouTube, whatever, how many fighters have said I was headed down that path or I was on that path. Boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, martial arts literally saved my life. I'm wondering how you can touch on that specifically, and maybe for yourself, and maybe some of the changes that you're seeing with the program itself.
For sure. It's not so much teaching them how to fight.
Right.
It's giving them confidence to walk away.
Good call. Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, I mean, the biggest thing is ego, right? For me, that ego probably just about got me killed many times. It probably, kept me going when I should have stopped or walked away. So it's how can we teach these kids to deflate their ego and to understand who they are as a person, but also have that healthy outlet. It's like, okay, there's a fight that's going to happen. Like you said, these kids are out here swinging haymakers, and we're just going to teach the kid to just step in. Right, he can't hit you if you're right here and he's trying to swing haymakers, right? And it's not so much about that; it's also about building that community. Yeah. We've seen kids come in who were actually kind of in different friend groups that were almost kind of about to be that beef, that street beef, and now they're in here training with each other, and now they're friends. They're leaving with each other. They're giving each other high fives. They're adding each other on Instagram. They're building that sense of community so that when they go out into schools or the town that they're in, they have that kind of brotherhood that is a healthy environment.
Yeah.
Right? And what better way to do it than to actually learn how to punch, to be able to take out that aggression. I mean, a lot of these kids, they just want to come in there and punch because they've had a shitty day, a shitty week. They feel like all odds are against them, and they have people here that care about them, that are letting them punch and teaching them the proper techniques. And, sometimes that's better than money. Right?
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And I agree. It's all about ego and coming from this side, the gym side of things, sparring. I'm not sure if you guys do sparring, but I've done 31 years. I've been doing this, a lot of sparring, and you have no choice but to let go of your ego. Like, there's no choice. No matter how tough I am, my sparring partner's going to beat me up. I'm exhausted. If it's not my turn this time, it'll be next time. Like, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, and maybe you can, but what is it that you see about the release of ego? Now, you mentioned a couple things, like I think brotherhood and people who care about you. I think that alone is unbelievable. But is there something that you can put your finger on about the boxing, kickboxing, martial arts that is really helping make that transition?
Well, for sure. I mean, it's helping these kids understand there's always someone bigger, stronger, faster. There's always someone who's going to have, a bigger knife, a bigger gun. There's always someone who's going to, be able to do harm. But the discipline of martial arts or boxing, I mean, there's so much just in there that's not about fighting. It's about, like I said, community, discipline, understanding your limits, how far you can push, and then having someone push you a little bit further. It's
with confidence.
With confidence,
Yeah.
with the ability to know who I am as a person, to know that I could probably kick the shit out of that person who's driving like an idiot, but I also have the discipline to know that I'm going to walk away. Right. As much as, it's a forward offensive movement, there's also that defense.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Knowing when to shut your mouth, knowing when to say no.
Yeah.
Right. It's so much more than just swinging and fighting and punching and kicking. It's controlling your mind as much as you're controlling your body.
You bet. Your emotions.
It's those values that are built up in the gym. You don't, as yourselves will both know, as lifelong martial artists, you don't just turn up to the gym, smash some pads, smash some bags for a bit, and then go home.
Right.
There is a lot more that goes into that. There is the community with your training partners. There's learning how to be as good of a pad holder as you are the person punching on the pads. So you get that respect. If I need to be the best person to help my partner grow, so that they'll do the same for me.
Yeah.
There's the discipline of turning up several times a week for an hour plus for whatever session you're going to do, and absolutely give it your best that entire session. There's a loyalty that you'll get to your coaches, to your training partner, to the team, to the space that you're in. There's the commitment to keeping going.
Yeah.
It's all of those values that build up, that are the intangibles that you get when you are training, that then become part of you and part of you when you walk out of that gym later on afterwards.
Hold yourself accountable and as well as the rest of your team. So is it very much like are you building a team, that team atmosphere? Like how many people, how long is it, how many days a week? Just so I'm kind of getting my brain around this here.
So there's no real, like, we're working on building a structured thing. So it's going to be every Sunday at a boxing gym. We're going to be going into the Young Offender Center twice a week. We're working with the Halfway House twice a week. We're kind of just figuring out exactly what that common routine and structure is going to be. But we've run 3 pilot programs. The one that Zach was a part of was a 6-week program, twice a week at the Center for Newcomers. These kids didn't have to show up. They showed up basically every time. The attendance was anywhere from 15 to 20 kids.
Nice.
And they kept coming back. And they came back because they wanted to come back. They weren't court appointed. Their parents weren't making them go there. They came and they saw the value and they came back and they brought their friends.
Nice, right on. What a win that is.
Absolutely.
And so, 15 to 20 kids you were saying, yeah? Is there a cap? You know what I mean? Like you said, well, we'll take everyone we can, but I mean...
Well, and that was the thing is we were planning to have 10 kids.
Yeah.
So we were going to run the speaker session, the boxing, and then the class.
Right.
But we ended up having 20. So we ended up splitting it. So we had everybody together at the speaker session, then half did the class, half did the boxing, and then halfway through we switched, and then we had food at the end.
Right on.
So, again, our whole thing is no kid gets turned away. Eventually, if we get up to the wait list and stuff like that, we'll look at second locations. We're working with Olympus Boxing, a gym in the Northeast.
Yeah.
We're kind of in the hub of
Shout out to
everything
Olympus.
that's going. Yeah, shout out to Olympus. Kamani, one of their main fighters, he just won the bare knuckle fight at the River Cree in Edmonton.
Oh, yeah, I just watched that.
Yeah. What
a madman.
And I mean, he's come to the jail with us to run sessions. His sponsors actually donated 15 tickets for some of the kids to actually come to the Olympus
Right
fight.
on.
So this is a very much community involved process. Our whole thing is collaboration over competition. We're not here to compete with anyone. We want to bring everyone in and build that team, as you say.
Yeah.
And we want these kids to have somewhere to go. It's kind of like that third place, Sometimes at school they can be bullied or facing a lot of challenges. Home is the same thing, but when they come into the dojo or to the gym with the rest of the team, they're there, a part of it. There's no judgment. We're just there to be the best version of ourselves.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, if you break it down as well, the more time they're spending doing this, the less time they're out getting up to mischief.
That's right. Yep.
100%.
Yep, for sure. Is everybody that comes in, like you said, it's up to them to want to be there. They show up on their own. Do you find it's always everyone's excited to be there? Is there a couple, maybe people every once in a while you got to win over a few sessions? They got to buy into it a little bit.
Yeah, the buy-in is there. I mean, the boxing, kids are already bought in with the boxing.
Sure.
It's when it's sometimes sitting and doing the life skills portion that there's some challenges. But I'll say this, the kids who are involved with the justice system or have been are always the ones that are the most respectful. They're paying attention. They know what the consequences are. The ones that haven't necessarily gone to jail or been involved with the justice system, they're usually the ones that are a little bit more difficult.
Gotcha.
But again, putting some of these kids in check sometimes is what needs to happen, and they don't have anyone sometimes at home that does that,
Yep.
keeps them accountable.
Yep.
So they actually crave it.
Sure.
Right? When you're telling a kid no and to not do that and to be respectful, they actually crave that behavior and to be told, to be a better person.
Yeah.
So sometimes, it's challenging, but in the end, I think they definitely see the value, and we learn from the kids as much as they learn from us. It's not us just going in there plugging information. It's us growing together as a community.
Yeah, which takes no ego, by the way. You can't have an ego doing that. It's easy to have one in a situation like, or any coach, really. But, man, good on you. Do all kids, is there anybody, I guess, that decides it's not for them? Does that ever happen?
It hasn't happened yet. And you know what? If that's the case, that's totally fine. And we have other resources for those kids.
Nice.
I think because we advertise it as boxing martial arts, that a lot of the kids, are bought into that. There's no experience necessary. So you can have never stepped in a dojo or put a boxing glove on, and that's totally fine. We'll train you to however far you want to go. Some of these kids just want to come here for that healthy outlet. Some of the kids actually want to be professional fighters. And
Nice.
our hope is to open the doors for them to do that. One of our kind of, goals down the road is to, run 6 or 8 week program. And at the end of that, have a charity fight where we raise money for awareness, we raise money for the program, but some of the participants and some of the youth who have trained are actually able to take that into the ring and experience what it's like to actually fight in a ring.
Nice, that's great. And I'm so focused on the boxing portion or martial arts. I apologize, but you also talked about like some of the life skills. Can you break down what else besides the boxing program that are involved in the program itself?
Well, absolutely. So there's, anger management, emotional regulation, how to de-escalate conflicts, talking about the realities of gang violence and what that actually looks like. There's a piece in there for nutrition, financial management. The list kind of goes on, and it really depends on what some of these kids want to do. If some of these kids want to go back to school, or to university, we're going to use our network and our resources to help them. If some of them want to be business owners, we're going to do whatever we can to help them and educate them to do that. A lot of these kids are really financially driven, so we're trying to show them that, our competitors for Gloves Not Guns are kind of the drug dealers and the gang recruiters out there that are trying to get these kids, driving the Mercedes with the Rolexes and all that stuff.
Right.
So we're actually trying to bring them to this side to show them they can still have that stuff. It doesn't have to be obtained illegally through, criminality, gangs, or violence.
Nice. What else is involved? So besides those couple, like is that sort of the package? Is there other things that you have them do or you want them to do or encourage them to do? Within the program?
Yeah, it kind of really depends. The biggest thing I think we want these kids is to find out their identity.
Yeah.
So through all these different curriculum, if you want to call it, or life skills portion, is to find out who they really are and then what their purpose is in the world, right? A lot of them, when you break it down, their motivations are family, younger siblings that they don't want to fall into that path, or they want to retire their parents, or they want to get a good education. So it's really about the sense of finding that identity and giving it to the world, right? Through that purpose. And
do you find that most of the kids you deal with, the young men you're dealing with, that is a major issue? They're aimless,
I don't think it's that they're aimless. I just think they're not being challenged in the right direction.
Okay, sure.
So they don't necessarily have someone that's gonna ask them the questions and say, "Oh no, you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that because culture, community." Whatever that is, we're enticing them to find out what it is that they really want to do, what gets them up in the morning before their alarm, and then highlighting that and expanding on that and supporting them through that.
And sorry, I'm sure you mentioned this, but which age range are we talking again?
So, we're pretty much anywhere from 12 to 25.
Okay.
We don't necessarily have those in the cohorts. Usually it's like 12 to 15 and then 15 to 20 kind of thing.
Okay, cool.
We're also looking at a women's program. We're just starting out. Nice. It's called Empower Her. So it's basically the same principles with the speaker, the fitness element, boxing, Muay Thai, but also self-defense. There's also some yoga in there.
Nice.
And then the life skills portion is like sexual exploitation, body image, social media, nutrition, all that kind of stuff, to really help these women. As much as we want to support the young men, we also want to help support these women as well.
Sure. Yeah, no, I hear you. Your plate sounds overflowing, man. It sounds like I'm sure it's not a bother and it's fine, but you sound like an incredibly busy person. Is that true?
These are probably two of my passion projects, and I probably have about 7 other things on the go right now. So
wow.
You can
Okay.
imagine, yeah.
Wow. What keeps you wanting to do this?
Watching these kids grow their lives into, something that they can be successful. Watching them have the chance that I never got. Watching them learn from my mistakes.
Being a positive influence, I'm sure, helping be part of that positive influence. That's got to be unbelievably rewarding. I'm not even joking. Like, I was just curious, but I see it in here in a very different circumstance. But seeing your own students succeed or seeing them struggle through something and then finally see them overcome that hurdle, that's one of the best rewards of a coaching job. So I would imagine under those circumstances, that alone must be unbelievably rewarding.
Yeah, watching a kid who was in custody, come through our program and with our support now is out of custody and just got accepted into university, and he wants to, master in psychology and give back to kids who don't have a chance. That's, one of many success stories.
Sure.
And that's exactly why we do this.
Nice. That's great. You're talking about expanding. Do you have anything in the works right now? Like, I know you're saying like looking, but
yeah. So again, like funding is always a challenge.
Sure.
We've put in hundreds of hours, totally volunteer, which is fine. But it starts to get to the point where it's like, getting equipment, gym space,
Everything costs money.
food for the kids, right? Everything costs money. So we're looking at applying for some grants. We are a nonprofit. To getting some funding so that we can run this constantly year round.
Nice.
So it'll be, Sundays in the gym, bi-weekly at the Young Offender Center, bi-weekly at the Halfway House, and then also some of these schools. So we like to go into the school, like the pilot project we ran. We go in twice a week after school and take kind of the identifiable high-risk kids that were identified by staff, SRO, which is school resource officer, the police officer that's in the school. They identify these kids, bring them to us, and then we start working with them.
Okay, so this makes it. I'm having a hard time picturing the program itself, and I would like to even if I can watch sometime or witness it for myself. But relating to school, I can definitely relate a little more to. So with these troubled youth that are in school and they come to you, are you trying to convince them, or how do you get little Johnny, who maybe the teachers have recognized as a pretty angry kid? How do you convince them that they need to be part of the program, or there's a reason you're here?
Well, I think the boxing is the biggest thing. I mean,
Yeah.
these kids want to
Yeah,
learn
good
how to
call.
box, how to fight, how to, and that's kind of the buy-in. But when
call.
they come to us, it's, again, we explain, this is not about learning how to fight or beat people up. This is learning about yourself, how to control your emotions, and how to be the best version of yourself. And again, like with the schools, we want to empower the teachers to be able to teach. Right. The teachers are so overwhelmed right now with too many students,
Not enough funding,
and everything. So we want to kind of take some of these kids and take the pressure off the teachers and show these kids, challenge them so that they know that, who they actually are.
Well, and it sounds not just like challenge them, but what I'm really hearing is judgment-free empathy as well. Like when you think of, in my opinion, in my experience, youth like that, sometimes just having some empathy goes a long way, right? And because it's so easy to just, if someone's not behaving the way you want them to, you treat them kind of like shit or you write them off, right? And like I said earlier, getting rid of your ego to do something like that is massive, and have some empathy. And like, man, I see a massive need all over the place for this, massive need. And me being a martial artist, being so passionate, finding it through martial arts, I think just completely makes sense. And man, if there's anything like we can do, and again, anywhere we can reach out, and we'll talk about it at the end. But I'm blown away, man. Like this is incredible, and to hear I'm sure it's more than one. You've already mentioned more than one man steering the ship, but that's quite a turnaround from how we started this podcast to where we're at now. That's unbelievable, man. I just want to give a shout out to you before we move on. Like I didn't know. I thought we were talking about a program. I didn't, I thought we were talking about a program that didn't, from my point of view, require empathy. And I'm hearing very different. And I'm a little bit of like, shame on you, Jay. Like, that's massive. Sorry, Zach, I know you're going to say something.
Yeah, I think the empathy is the biggest part of it.
Massive.
Where we get the people into the program to begin with, it's very much using the ego initially to get them through the door. A lot of the kids, particularly when you've ended up in a disenfranchised background, you end up having to grow up far too quick, far too early.
Sure.
And you end up with a very hard shell around you as a result.
Right.
And because of the violence that typically comes along with that, you end up with a lot of people who think, they're Billy Big Bollocks. They think they're the big I am. You ask them, oh, can you fight? They'd say, oh, yeah, absolutely. But have they ever been to a gym in their life? No. They just think that they can.
Sure.
So when you say, oh, we've got boxing that's part of this, we've got Muay Thai that's part of this, they're probably thinking, yeah, I'd be really good at that. I'll just go and do that and I'll smash everybody,
Yeah.
That's exactly what it'll be. Then that gets them through the door.
Right.
And then once you've got them through the door is then you see the moments of realization, as we've done with some of the sessions, where you start to take them through the actual technique and they go, okay, this is a bit different to what I thought it was. This isn't as hard as I thought.
Sure.
This is a bit harder than I thought this was going to be. I thought I was just naturally good at this.
And maybe that was the word I was looking for when I said the buy-in. Like, how often do you see the realization moment? Like, does that happen often?
All the time.
Oh, yeah.
That alone's got to be rewarding too.
Yeah, it's rewarding for us to see that, and I think it's also rewarding for them because it's that initial realization of I'm not as good as this as I thought. And some of the times where, conversations that I've had with kids, both the sessions in the UK and sessions here, is you need to realize this, because your ego will get in the way of you thinking, I think I'm the best there is. No one can touch me. You go out with that mentality and you're going to get stabbed. You're going to get shot, because no matter how, big and hard you are, you're not going to end up with muscles hard enough to stop a bullet and stop a knife.
Sure.
And even without that in the case, if you have an overinflated sense of self and an overinflated sense of your own ability, someone's going to punch your head in.
Right.
Because they are better than you.
Yep.
They have trained better than you. You're going to bite off more than you can chew with the wrong person at the wrong time, and it's not going to be your day.
Yep.
And then, so that's, again, very much something we need to teach them. But after we get them in, after they then realize, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought it would be. The ego is still there. It still drives them, but the ego is used in a positive way to then drive themselves into, okay, I've realized I'm not as good as this as I think I might have wanted to be. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to train. I am going to push so I can get to that point where I want to be, so that I can actually look at myself and say, you know what, I am pretty good at this. And over that journey is when we then bring into these steps of empathy, these life skills, and that all packages it up together.
Right. As well as, besides on the boxing portion, I'm sure with the rest of the program, there's all sorts of realization moments, right? Like, that's great.
Absolutely. And the thing is, too, is, where a lot of these teachers or people in community may write these kids off, we hold that space of empathy and vulnerability and non-judgmental to actually understand what is happening with the kid. Like, you're misbehaving, why? Okay, well, now we found out that the dad's not in the picture.
Right.
He's not allowed to be in the picture.
Right. Okay.
So now that kind of explains about why little Johnny is acting the way that he does.
Instead of just stop misbehaving.
Stop misbehaving or go to the office.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, okay, well, how does that challenge you? What are the things that you need? And then actually building the relationship with them so that we can help them understand what it is they actually need. Because one of the hardest things to do is ask for help, especially when you have that ego in the way.
Without a doubt.
Right? So when we come in and, to Zach's point, like, these kids sometimes think that they're great, and then they come in and they're like, oh shit, I kind of suck at this. We don't go, you suck at this. We go, it's okay, you're doing great, try this.
Yeah.
Right? Here's a little bit more of a technique, and then we build on it and build on it. And we've seen these kids come in, and some of them are, could be some pretty top contenders.
And that was my next question. Have any of these kids had any fights?
Not yet, but I mean, they're right there. I mean,
nice.
There's 3 of them right now that, we'd love to give them that opportunity as soon as we can.
Nice. That's great. Now, you were saying that the program is about 6 weeks?
Yeah, that's kind of the pilot. And I know I'm trying to give you a visualization of the actual program. So right now it's not a set date.
Right.
We've run a couple pilots and we're just looking to really fine tune it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, eventually we our hopes is to have it running every Sunday, and then a 6-week kind of core program for the school. We have one for the jail. Again, it all just comes down to that funding and to availability, right?
Sure. So let's say, without getting like, crazy billionaire talk, but let's say I go, hey, listen, I'm in. I have no idea what funding you need. Don't worry about it. How in your mind would you see this perfect scenario going for the program?
So, I mean, the best impact for the program is a 6-week program that runs twice a week.
Okay.
That's how our curriculum's developed. That's how our speaker sheets are developed.
Okay.
That's kind of the bolt-on template.
Okay.
But again, like, we have organizations like the Halfway House who have, approached us and said, hey, can you come run a program to see what it's about? We went and ran a program, and they're like, wow, that was absolutely amazing. When can you come back?
Nice.
So that's kind of, what's happening right now. And, we're just doing one high school, but we have a meeting with 4 of the SROs for all the Northeast high schools, school resource officers. And I know it's going to be like, when can you come to our school?
Right.
If we get a call from a place up in Edmonton who's having a bunch of troubled kids, we'll head up and run a pilot there, and then, eventually hopefully get into that 6-week scope so that we can really develop the life skills and the speaker portion.
And I know you were saying earlier that you want to keep up the help, not just during the program, but after. So after the 6 weeks, what generally tends to happen, or what happens once the course per se is finished?
So for this one, I mean, we completed the program. The kids all got certificates, and then we're bringing them to the fight. So on the 21st, we're going to bring some of the kids who are the best well-behaved to the fight and that were really there. And then, they always have that option to come to the next one. But if one of those kids reaches out to any of us on Instagram or calls us and says, hey, I'm going through it, you know, pause everything. Let's figure this out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
A question for myself as well, because I recognize that the circumstances that other people are going to have are quite different to mine, where I've had experience with running programs similar to this in the past and come to you with that experience as well. If anyone wanted to come to you and, get involved with facilitating and actually joining on the staff section of
Yeah.
things, what would you be looking for from them,
was
and
my
how
next
would they get in touch with you to actually start working with yourselves with delivering the program to the kids?
Absolutely. So anyone can get involved or get a hold of me. The best way is just on Instagram.
Okay.
At Gloves Not Guns Boxing. And then, whatever your skills are or time commitment or whatever, we'll find a place. But again, this is not a me program. This is a we program. So this is about everybody just, getting involved because they want to get involved. And eventually we're going to have some paid positions and stuff as we get the funding and everything else. It's really tricky because money changes people. Not
Yes.
everybody, but I've seen it out in community where money can make things sticky.
For sure.
But we never want that to be a part of this program, and we never want any kid to have to feel like they can't afford it. So that's why it's free to all kids.
And are there any particular skill sets at the moment you're looking for? Are you looking for like more people who can provide the coaching aspect of the thing for the martial arts, more people who can provide the life skills, speakers, so on? Is there anything in particular on that side of things that you're looking for currently?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking for speakers. The more the merrier, and that doesn't necessarily just have to be this program. There's other organizations I work with that are always looking for speakers. Social media management and marketing is something that we'd love to have someone help us out with.
Martial
if
art
there's
on its
anyone
own.
out there, right? Yeah, exactly. The content creating. So that kind of stuff. And again, I mean, facilitators, we're always looking for, mentors. So if there's people that want to help and mentor some of these kids and to be involved, it's just, we don't have a set template. It's if you want to come get involved, we'll find you a spot.
Nice. So real quick, can you, I know we talked about it earlier, just breaking it down one more time. This sounds great. This might sound like something I need to be involved in as a youth. Go to number one, Instagram, yeah?
Instagram, yeah. You can go to glovesnotguns.ca. That's our website. Instagram's the best way to DM me and get a hold of me right away, because basically I've had kids DM me and say, hey, I want to get involved. I said, okay, send me XYZ for information. I put them on the list. As soon as our next cohort starts, I'll be giving all of them a call to get them involved.
Nice.
We also have a clothing line that's coming out. We're just waiting for the designs.
Nice.
So all proceeds of that clothing is going to go directly back into the program to help pay for gym, pay for equipment, all that kind of stuff. So watch for that.
What about things like equipment? Like, do you guys need equipment?
We're always looking for equipment. We just bought some, but we need some more focus mitts and probably some more gloves as things progress. Again, when I say asking help is something that's hard, that's myself included. I'm
I hear
not
you.
someone to say, yeah, I'd love to have this, but we're always looking for help, donations, equipment, anything. Yeah.
All through you, usually through the Instagram, right? Gloves Not Guns.
That's the best way. I mean, that's
You're the man behind that.
I'm the man behind it.
Okay, yeah.
I could give out my phone number, but
Yeah, don't.
And to any gym owners that might be listening, would you be interested at all if any gym owners were to get into contact with you and say, hey, I'm going to open up the gym for free for a weekend. If you want to come in and speak to anyone that turns up and we'll run a similar sort of program like this, what would you think of something like that?
absolutely. I mean, we haven't reached out to a whole bunch of gyms yet. But we did reach out to Olympus, and they've been great. And again, we're kind of looking at all different quadrants of the city.
Yep.
So gyms that align with us, we're definitely into that. The cool thing about this program is it can literally be run in an instant. You can call me, in an hour and say, hey, can we run a program down at this gym? And we grab the team, we grab the gear, we come down there, the kids are there, we're good to go. So it's not like there's a whole bunch of planning that needs to go into this.
Sure.
We can basically do this mobile anywhere and with very little time for the planning. So it's pretty much all planned out. And again, in these kind of one-off sessions, the life skills isn't the huge part. We usually just sit in a healing circle and just become vulnerable gentlemen and learn about each other's problems and how we can overcome those challenges.
That's great. So, and I was going to ask, is space an issue? Like, if more, like, is it a tight quarters as you get more kids? Maybe something like if there's a gym available, obviously that would be ideal, I'm assuming.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, space, if it's a matter of, say, we have 50 kids and we only have space for 20, well, then
Right.
we'll run, 2 or 3 10-person cohorts.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I got you. That makes sense. But it'd be nice to be able to do 25 or 50 all at once, obviously, no?
Well,
or is that too
you
big?
know what? To be honest, the smaller groups are more intimate and you build that more connection.
Without a doubt.
Right?
Yeah.
So, we're kind of quality over quantity and, anywhere from, 5 to 15 is kind of the ideal number. Any more than that, then we just need too many coaches and too many mentors, and it's too hard to focus on each kid.
You get 10
individually.
seconds, you get 10 seconds. You know.
Exactly.
Yep,
And we want to give these kids the voice that maybe they don't have at home or maybe they don't have at school.
Right.
And to give us that, opportunity to understand what is needed. And that's another thing with the law enforcement is some of these kids can tell us stuff that maybe law enforcement would punish them for.
Right.
We just want to understand what it is so that A, we can make sure they're safe, and B, we can help them overcome the challenges. Because, this program was kind of founded on giving everyone that second chance.
Right. And from what I can hear and understand, it's and being as genuine as you're saying, all these words are genuine. Like, you clearly mean it. You're there to help. Unbelievable, man. I would love. I personally will be talking with you after this. I'd love to know how to get involved a little more. Do you happen to find? And sometimes I'm stumbling over my words. I'm just trying not to be any disrespectful to anybody who's involved. And I don't mean to be, but do you find that most of these young men are fatherless? There's a father not around in the home. Is that a high percentage?
And I wouldn't necessarily say that they're fatherless. I would say that positive male role models in their life is definitely lacking.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
And because we work with so many different cultures and religions and values, sometimes the father role is different than, say, the mentor role.
Right.
And they can talk to us about stuff that's non-judgmental or that we've done the same shit, so we know. Right. Whereas as the father, they might get punished in that position.
Yep. That makes sense.
Or they don't understand. Like, to be a teenager right now I thought it was hard when I was a teenager. Looking at some of these kids and the stuff that they're dealing with, to be a teenager now is hard.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
And some of the choices made can change your life in an instant. There was that shooting that just happened, a couple of weeks ago where, a guy's innocent girlfriend who was 19 was shot and murdered by an opposition gang, and nobody wins in that situation.
Yeah.
It's a lose-lose.
Yeah, it's very often you speak to the kids and they don't necessarily have much of a care for their own well-being because they recognize what they've gotten into.
Sure.
So you need to often speak to them about the second, third, and fourth order of effects from what happens after this.
Sure.
See, we recognize that you know what you know what you're getting into. You know what's going to happen potentially to you as a result of this, but sometimes they don't realize. Okay, you might be fine with your consequences for this, but are you fine with the possibility of the fact that you may have to carry your friend after this in a box that's far too small than someone should ever see?
Yep.
Are you happy with the fact that, as we were speaking to some of the kids at, CYOC, that your house is going to get driven by where your mum's inside and that's going to get shot up and that's potentially on you because of the actions that you've gotten involved in?
Right, yeah.
A lot of the time that is something that, needs to be said to them because they don't realize that it's just more wider reaching than just them.
Right, that event has veins reaching out to others. Yeah, for sure. So just before we wrap up here, I'm just curious, I always ask like top 3 questions. What are your top 3 rewards, yours, doing this program?
Well, my first is watching these kids change, right? Coming into their identity, watching the lights go on when they get those realizations, like you said, right? The second is probably in community, so getting to meet amazing people like yourself and like Zach, and the third is sharing something that I love so much that's literally saved my life, boxing and martial arts. I get to share this with the world in a way that I think is a little bit different than most places. This isn't just a boxing gym where you come in, you pay your fee and you learn how to train. This is something that actually is going to make an impact in many lives, in the future. And because of all the harm that I've caused and kind of my negative karma, I want to leave something behind whenever I die, whether that's tomorrow or 20 years from now. I want to make sure that I'm leaving some kind of legacy behind to repair the damages that I've caused, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. The karma. Yep. I hear you. Give me the top 3 reasons why someone, a youth, needs to call you, get a hold of you.
Well, I say anger. If any of these kids are angry, I was a really angry child. A lot of the stuff that happened to me wasn't my fault, but it's my responsibility to understand why and to be better.
Sure.
So for me, if you're angry, get a hold of me, because anger comes from fear, and let's figure out what you're afraid of and how we can overcome that so you can stop becoming so angry. Another thing is if you're falling, some of these kids get trapped into this gang or criminal life. If you're kind of on that edge, you know, get a hold of me so that we can make some positive decisions to get you out of that before it's too late. You know, and number 3 is just to realize that you have more potential than, you know, maybe your teachers or parents or, you know, people out in the world see in you, because I see that potential because, you know, someone saw it in me and I see it in you.
Nice. Again, putting myself in this scenario, I'm stuck. I hear this podcast. It's time. I got to call. I got to send a message. I don't know if you can answer this, but I call you, you reach back to me. Hey, great. How soon can I have can my taking a leap of faith have an effect? What is it, the first day? Do I speak to people right away? I've made the decision. I've made the hard contact that I quickly wrote it down and I sent it to you. Okay, I made it. Holy cow, I made the leap of faith. When do things start rolling?
It already did.
Yeah.
Just by
that
doing
initial step, for sure.
That initial step. You know, they say in addiction, the first step is admitting you have a problem.
Sure.
Right? That gets the ball rolling. Just by reaching out or getting out of your comfort zone or saying, hey, I need help or I want to be a part of this, that's already changing the trajectory of anyone's life in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Awesome. Okay. Real quick, one more time. Where do we find you on Instagram? Anywhere, to be honest. I don't care how many times you need to mention. I think it's unbelievably important.
For sure. So glovesnotguns.ca is our website. At Gloves Not Guns Boxing on Instagram. And, you know, those 2 are the main ones. And, you know, anyone who's out there wants to be involved, wants to be a part of the program, wants to donate, wants to help with social media or marketing, you know, get a hold of us. And, yeah, we'd love to have you.
Nice. Zach, anything before we're out of here?
No, I think that everything that's said has been need to be said.
Yeah. Listen, from my point of view, I didn't know what we were going to talk about, man. And it went from like I said, like, dude, that's the heaviest thing I've ever heard on this podcast. To like, I'm inspired. Like if even in my own teaching, I recognize sitting here. So if there's any students, just earmuffs, that maybe I need some more empathy as well. And I hear it as I'm sitting here, and I think that's unbelievable. I also think that it's too much for one man, per se. It's only going to grow, right? So the things like how do more people get involved and stuff, I think is unbelievably important because, you know, only one man can go so far. And I think that there's clearly shown potential in this, but I think that if I'm talking about myself, I think there's a massive issue with young men right now. And not saying that there isn't with young women, but I think this is massively important. Even just an outreach. We all have to be tough. We all have to have our chin in the air. Nothing bothers me, but we all know that's horseshit. Mm-hmm. And I think having somebody who's dropped the ego, been in the life, is empathetic, and really trying to steer the ship. Could you imagine if we had something like this just in one city? Just one in Edmonton, one in Calgary, one in Winnipeg, one in Vancouver. Man, massive. I don't know where to go except if you're listening, listen, get on board, man. Let's try to help. I want to help. I think this is great. Other than that, guys, if all you got to do, if you're in this stage, you're feeling trapped, just send this fellow a message, and you've already changed your life by that message. Last question. Who's your top 3 favorite fighters of all time? Any combat sport?
I mean, McGregor, Tyson, and well, how about Zach? Number 3.
Zach.
Oh,
all right.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I haven't seen him fight yet, but I'll keep my distance. How about you? Who's your top 3 favorite of all time?
See, top 3 favorite. Got to start off with someone, you know, Billy Joe Saunders.
Okay.
Got to start off with that. Got to shout out to another fellow traveler there, Tyson Fury. Again, man who's come back from the brink, you know, and you know made his life better as a result from that point onwards. And you know, shout out to very recently retired Liam Harrison, major hero of mine from being a young boy.
Yeah, nice. I don't think I've ever said it, but since I'm here, number 1, Ramon Deckers, Muay Thai. That guy gets his own pedestal. Number 2, Yeltsin Clive Fairtex, who will be here September 21st. Holy cow, make sure you're here. And number 3, Liam Harrison. I always tell people on all the podcasts, I was a Liam Harrison fan before everybody else was, just so they know I was on the first bandwagon, not the second one. All right, guys. Listen, TJ, thanks a lot, man. That was something else. That was awesome. And you too. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate you guys. And from my point of view, I'd like to talk more about this. I'm really hoping that some other martial arts communities out there can do the same. This is right up our ballpark. But other than that, guys, in the meantime and in between time, this is the Mighty Shoutout Podcast. Shout out to Ed Whalen. Peace.